Hi everyone, I'm Rosemary. It's been a minute, but I'm back with some high-end inspired large wall art decor. These pieces were inspired by stores like Restoration Hardware, West Elm, and Pottery Barn, and I'm using Dollar Tree repurposed and thrifted materials. For the first project, I'll be making a framed textile art piece. Now these are quite popular and are available at Pottery Barn, Restoration Hardware, West Elm, as well as many other of the high-end retailers. For the Fab Tax version, I'll be using this table runner that I picked up at Marshall's for $5, as well as this Goodwill frame that I picked up for $14.99. It's a little more than I typically like to pay, but it is going for a good cause. Plus, for this size and quality of frame, I'm not going to find it anywhere for less than $14.99. Now, the one thing that I don't like about this frame is that it does have this green border. And I was hoping that when I took it out of the frame and flipped it over, it would just have a white background. And luckily, that was the case. So here you can see the flip side of the mat board, and since it is the nice white color that I wanted, I'm going to just go ahead and use that side for this project. And then to prepare my table runner, I just cut it to the desired length. And then as you can see there, since this was a clearance item, it did have a lot of pulls and different stray strands of weave coming through. So I just went ahead with some scissors and cut off all of those little imperfections. Next, I wanted to add some fringe to the fresh cut end of the runner. So as you can see, the other sides and end of the table runner do have a nice fringe on them. So in order to get that fringe on the newly cut end, I just took some scissors and kind of snipped there at the where it kind of holds it together on the side, and just opened that one piece up, and then was able to get a few strands free that I can begin to pull out. And then I continue to do that so that I can create the fringe at the length that I wanted it to be. To attach the table runner to the frame backing and the mat board, I use my favorite Gorilla mounting tape. This stuff is terrific. You can hang all types of things with it. You can buy it pretty much anywhere Gorilla Glue is sold, but I do have a link in the description if you want something quick and easy from Amazon. And so I just placed a few strips there at the top and bottom of the mat board, which has been attached to the frame backing. And then I simply put the table runner right on top and secured it in place. And then it was ready to put right back into the frame. And then wowza, I love the way this came out. This is maybe one of my favorite pieces and super duper easy to do, and coming in looking like quite the high-end piece, but only for about $20. For project 2, I'm taking my inspiration from Pottery Barn and their frame rail series. I love these. They come in several different colors and styles. They even have a chain link one. It's really pretty, but I thought something like this one would be perfect for my son's room, where I was trying to find a way to hang his collection of Godzilla, a big Godzilla fan, frames. These were hanging on his wall prior to our repainting it, but we had them in a gallery format, and I thought, you know what, I'm going to use repurpose this frame that was from a poster in his room, and maybe we can create one of those frame rails. So when I made the poster frame several years ago, I used this 1 inch by 2 inch by 8 foot pine board. So I just wanted to let you know what I made it of. So in case you wanted to make this and didn't have any poster frames laying around, you know where to go. For the top rail, I'm going to be using an unfinished piece of the 1 inch by 2 inch pine board that I happen to have in my garage. Now I did cut this to 54 inches in length. And then for the down pieces, I'll be using the poster frame that I previously had painted black. And I'll be attaching the poster frame boards to the cross rail at 50 inches, 35.5 inches, 21, and 6.5 inches. And then this is where my favorite drill driver comes in super handy, the switch driver from Works. Look how cool this is. You just push a button and you go from drill, and then it'll flip right back over to driver. Now I am just drilling that top post Don't want to drill down into the second post. I'm going to leave that for the screw threads to dig into that, but you can see how easy it is, and you can just quickly get the job done with one tool. And then once all of my rails are attached, I'm going to go ahead and give the entire piece a fresh coat of black paint. And then here it is attached to the wall. So how I attach it to the wall was that I drilled holes in the two ends there and then one in the middle. And luckily they lined up with studs. Had they not, I would have used some anchors. And then it's just a matter of arranging and then attaching the frames to the rails. And I am just loving the way this came out. I always loved these. I always thought they were so cool. Always wanted to make one. And I think it's just a great way to display photographs or artwork. And I can't think of a better application in our house than Matt's Godzilla fan art. For the next project, I'm going to be making some abstract art inspired by Restoration Hardware. I'm a big fan of abstract art, mostly because it's a quick and easy way to pull a room together and create a cohesive look by incorporating the colors used in the room into the piece. And we can definitely do it for less than $3,000. I purchased this 3-panel Zen art piece several years ago. It was on a clearance and the packaging it was in was all beat up, so I'm pretty sure it was $7 or $8. It was definitely less than $10, but unfortunately I could never find a spot for it, and it's pretty much sat in a closet for the last 3 or 4 years. And although it pains me because I do like this piece, I'm going to go ahead and use it for this project. And the first step is going to be to cover the surface of the canvas with this caulk mastic from the Dollar Tree. And basically I'm just kind of squirting it onto the surface and then using this putty knife to just go over the surface and spread it all around. And it's just kind of like slathering it on. It's no rhyme or reason, obviously. Actually, the sloppier and the more texturized, the better. And just making sure that I'm covering all the surface. And like I said, it does pain me to do this, but I kept looking at it and saying, it's just sitting in a closet. It's going to sit there for another 3 or 4 years, so I might as well go ahead and use it. But of course you can do this with a old canvas like this, or something that you picked up at a thrift store or a garage sale. And of course you can always just do this with a plain white canvas that you picked up at a craft store. And then here it is after it dried, and since it was still a little splotchy, I did decide to go ahead and give it a coat of white spray paint on top of the dried caulk. And then here is a comparison of 2 of the panels. The one on the left has been painted with the white spray paint. The one on the right is left a little splotchy. Now I wanted to point these out because you might prefer this splotchier look for the finished effect that you're going for. For what I was trying to do, I did want a more uniform base. Now, having said that, once I got the panels into the room, I was going to place them in. I wasn't wild about that stark white color, so I did go ahead and warm them up a bit with a mixture of this plaster with a drop or 2 of the cashew inside, and then I watered it down quite a bit and coated the top of the canvas. So the RH piece that I decided to use for my inspiration was the one with the large rectangle on it. And so as you can see, I already painted the large rectangle on the first 2 panels, and I'm simply using some black paint to roughly paint the shape. And I want them to be similar, but not exactly the same. So I'm kind of roughly making them the same length and width and positioning them on the canvas in approximately the same location, but the brush strokes, density of the paint, and the exact final shape will be unique to each panel. I also wanted to show you a close-up of how the texture of the caulk on the canvas really helps to create a feathered, static look to the paint strokes, effortlessly creating an excellent abstract look. You can play with this interaction between the paint and the texturized surface, creating thicker lines with the use of heavier paint, or a more feathered look by use of a drier brush over the textured surface. To create the gold accents, I'm going to be using this Folk Art brushed metal gold paint. And then again with the accenting, I'm going to be switching it up a little bit, but yet still keeping them uniform. So to keep them uniform, I'm going to be doing the accenting there along the bottom side of the rectangle. but I am placing the accenting in different locations on each of the panels along that bottom side. In addition, I'm going to be doing the upper right side of each of the panels with some of the accenting, but again, just switching it up a little bit. And then here you can see the finished project with all 3 panels hanging on the wall. And you can see how the texture base creates a great effect not only for where the paint strokes are, but also along the backgrounds. The strong black and white colors are perfect for this room and cohesively pull the room together, which you will see in an upcoming video. But here is a sneak peek of how these abstract pieces blend beautifully with the framed textile art from earlier in the video. And if you're wondering, yes, both the lantern and the trough are from a previous DIY, which I will link here and in the description. For the last project, I'm taking my inspiration from this beautiful West Elm kimono wall art. However, this piece, with just some slight variations in the dimensions and finish, is less of an inspired by piece and pretty much a full-on dupe. So let's go ahead and see how I put this together. To start, I took a piece of white cardboard that I had left over from some packaging and cut it to 26 by 19 inches. A piece of foam board would also work well here. To create the shape, I used a small Dollar Tree hula hoop, then traced a line with a pencil to the inside of the hoop. Next, I cut out the shape after first measuring 6 inches up along the side to keep the straight edge of the cardboard there, and then began cutting the curve out at that point. So in other words, keep this bottom 6 inches of the cardboard straight on both sides and begin cutting the curve at that point 6 inches up. Next, I'm going to glue Dollar Tree white nautical rope to the cardboard. But I wanted to take a second to point out that Dollar Tree does sell 2 different sizes of this rope. There's a 6-foot and an 11-foot, and the 11-foot is a thinner gauge than the 6-foot, but because I wanted the length for this piece, I'm going to go ahead and use the 11-foot on this project. After unpackaging the rope, I wanted to get the midpoint, so I folded the rope in half, making sure the ends met on one end and creating a little loop there at the top of the other. After adding a line of glue around the top perimeter of the cardboard, I centered the loop in the middle of the cardboard and pressed it into the glue. Then I attached the rope to the glue on both sides, creating a first row there along the edge, then used the same process to create the next rows. I used a total of 12 ropes for this first, larger semi-oval for the piece. And then once all 12 pieces were attached, I wanted to separate the roped portion from the rest of the cardboard while still keeping the cardboard intact. So at first I tried to cut the cardboard with scissors way up close along the bottom edge of the rope, but that proved difficult, so I switched to a utility knife, but that ended up cutting into the rope. So what I discovered was the best option was to cut the cardboard about 1/2 inch away from the bottom of the rope, thereby easily enabling me to remove that smaller semi-oval piece, and again keeping it intact, and then I can go back and just clean up the edges with a utility knife and scissors, and that was much easier to do than having to do it while the larger piece was still attached. To create the smaller oval shape for the bottom portion of this piece, I used a Dollar Tree platter as the template, and again just traced along the edge with a pencil and then cut out the shape with scissors. Next, I began attaching the rope as I did for the larger portion, again finding the middle of the rope and attaching it to the center of the cardboard, then gluing the sides in rows down the cardboard. And I used a total of 9 of the 11-foot nautical ropes for this bottom portion. And then once all those ropes were attached, I again separated the roped portion from the non-roped portion on the cardboard. And again, I just did a rough cut to remove the majority of the cardboard and then went back and did finer cuts to clean up the edges. For the cross wood pieces, I'm going to use 1.5 inch strips of balsa wood. If you're not familiar with balsa wood, it can be purchased at craft stores, and what's neat about it is that it can be easily cut with scissors or a utility knife, yet still gives you a great wood look. So I'm going to take one of the balsa wood strips and heavily coat it with some of my Titebond glue. Then I'll center the larger roped piece on top and then add the smaller piece in between. When attaching the pieces to the wood, I'm making sure the bottom edge of the cardboard is aligned with the bottom edge of the wood. Next, I'm going to take that second piece of balsa wood and again coat it with some of the Titebond glue and then lay it on top of the rope semi-ovals and line it up with the bottom piece of the wood. To secure the two edges to each other, as well as ensure a tight bond on the ropes, I'm going to wrap the wood pieces with some twine until the glue sets. Then I cut 2-inch strips of cardboard, and I'm going to be gluing these to the back of the piece below the wood board in each section. This will prevent the rope from unwinding in that section on the front of the piece. And then it's just a matter of unwinding each strand of rope to create the thinner strands. My wonderful daughter Nikki was home this weekend and helped me with this part. We decided to just take the strands out to the initial separation, but then each of those can be further separated if desired. To hang the piece, I'm going to be using 4 1 1/2 inch finishing nails, which I'm going to place directly into the front of the piece, 2 in each of the roped sections, and then nail directly into the wall. And then from there, you can easily trim the ends to the desired length. We decided to keep ours at 32 inches for the shorter pieces and 42 inches for the longer ones. And then here you can see the 2 pieces side by side. On the left hand side is the West Elm original, and on the right is the somewhat dupe. As you can see, the dimensions are different, and that's because the wall I want to place it on, the piece at 48 inches would have been too wide. So I wanted to do it a little bit thinner and a little bit longer, so I custom made this piece to fit the space. And of course, that is one of the many beauties of doing things DIY. And of course, the potential considerable cost savings, which is definitely the case in this instance. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this high-end store-inspired large wall decor art DIY video. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give a big thumbs up, and please let me know in the comments which one was your favorite. If you would like to see more high-end decor DIYs, I've done a complete series, and I will link a playlist here and also in the description. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on FabTax, where we're putting the extra and ordinary one DIY at a time.